The PGA and the LIV Golf Tour are merging. I would describe this as blockbuster news that came down about 10 a.m. Eastern this morning. Here's a good question for you right off the top, Buck. What percentage of our audience do you think are golfers?
30, 40?
Yeah.
30% maybe?
I think it's a pretty high percentage. So I think there's a lot of you that are fascinated by this story. For those of you who are not, let me give you...
Is that crazy, brother? Is 30 way too high? Or is that seems about right? I think right, probably. Yeah.
I would think that there is a massive overlap between this show and golf. If I had to bet on any sport, like obviously the NFL's huge, college football's huge, football in general in this country is huge. But if I had to bet, I would put a lot of money on there being a huge number of you even that are listening to us right now as you drive to or from the golf course, as you get out and work on the range. I would think there is a huge overlap. I know for a fact that Outkick and the golf universe are basically one and the same, right? There's just a huge overlap of people that are interested in golf and also read Outkick on a regular basis. So, Buck, let me tie it into Trump here off the top. You and I, last year in July, were with Trump at Bedminster for the LIV Golf event. I played the LIV Golf event there. And let me give you a little bit. I don't know that I said this on the show. I stayed at the LIV Golf Hotel the night before the LIV Golf Pro-Am, right? I played with Brooks Koepka. I nearly killed him with one of my errant shots. He's lucky to be alive. I think he's going to be a father now, so I'm glad I didn't end his bid for fatherhood when he almost got blindsided by one of my awful shots out there at Bedminster. But the reason why I bring this up is the night before the tournament officially got underway, I was sitting at the bar at the hotel, and all of these, do you remember this, Buck? All of these 9/11 protesters walked in, and they were saying that anybody who had gone to work at LIV was taking blood money, that this was unacceptable. And I was sitting at the bar just having a beer with several different LIV Golf executives and players. And a couple of these dudes came in and they were like, "Oh, you're going to play in this course? Don't you feel awful for yourself? How could you take blood money?" First of all, I wasn't being paid anything. I was just playing in the course, and we were doing our show with Trump. And I believe we have audio of PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan effectively saying anybody that went to work for LIV was standing alongside of the 9/11 terrorists effectively. Here's that audio.
Well, I talked to players. I've talked at a player meeting, and I've talked to a number of players individually for a long period of time. And I think you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that there are significant implications. And as it relates to the families of 9/11, I have two families that are close to me that lost loved ones. And so my heart goes out to them. And I would ask, any player that has left or any player that would ever consider leaving, have you ever had to apologize for being a member of the PGA Tour?
Okay, Buck. I mean, that's pretty aggressive to say basically you're turning your back on 9/11 victims if you're deciding to play on the LIV Tour. Here's what's significant. There are reports that a guy like Tiger Woods, Buck, turned down $750 million to stay with the PGA Tour. Now the PGA Tour itself, which tried to keep its players from joining the LIV Tour, is now in partnership directly with the Saudis themselves. You're not even a hardcore golf guy or certainly a sports fan, but that hypocrisy has to even kind of blow your mind a little bit, right?
Money talks. I mean, at the end of the day, the Saudis there's really no money like oil money, because even if, let's say the Saudis ran their treasury down to zero tomorrow, not that that's going to happen, but they have free money that just comes out of the ground, and it's money, and it's a substance, oil, that the entire world needs. The world economy, the global economy functions only because of hydrocarbons, despite what all the lunatic leftists, and you see these, like Stop Oil protesters in the UK. These people are, they're grasping at a religion that is rooted in lunacy. And that's what this climate oil stuff, climate change, oil, hydrocarbon opposition's all about. But bringing it back to the sports side of things, I'm trying to think of something to say about the PGA Tour. I know nothing about the PGA Tour, but I know that divesting from Saudi entirely is effectively impossible. I mean, what is it? A little over 12, 13, 14%, something like that of global oil output every day comes from Saudi Arabia. So unless you want the world to be markedly poorer, you're doing business with the Saudis. You just don't know it because the world economy functions on oil. So I don't know what, I also would kind of wonder it's easy for people to talk a big game about Saudi Arabia. Here's how I can add to this conversation because I have never watched a golf on TV event in my entire life.
Is this real? I don't even know how that's possible. You have never watched any golf tournament.
It is. I could think of nothing. You know what? I'm going to hold my opinions back on televised golf. My dad loves golf. So there are Sextons who my dad loves golf. Yeah. He's all about it. So I'll just keep I'll keep my golf to myself.
I love it too. I love playing golf. I'm awful at it, but I'll watch it on TV too. I really enjoy it.
But remember when there was that guy who was assassinated by the Saudi, basically a Saudi hit squad, and they chopped up the body, and everyone was saying, Khashoggi and Mohammed bin Salman was all of a sudden persona non grata. What are we going to do? You know what everybody did about that, Democrat and Republican? You know what really happened as a result of that? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. So all the talk and all the editorials and no one did a damn thing. They used it to blame Trump because it happened under, Trump had nothing to do with any of it. But they're like, why don't you just, get into it with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? You know why? Because we need the oil still. And that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. The global market needs oil. So we try, and the relationship with Saudi Arabia that the U.S. has been getting better in recent years. So it's easy to talk tough about the Saudis, but they got a lot of money and no one's going to do anything about the Saudis, really. So that's what I see from a geopolitical side of the LIV Golf PGA merger.
I think we have audio from me talking about this a year ago. This was on Fox News. My perspective on this has always been, Buck, as long as you don't lecture me about politics, I don't have any issue at all with you making money from countries that have different values than the United States. But when you lecture me, as many athletes do, and as the PGA tried to do, oh, how dare you take Saudi money? And meanwhile, you got the NBA making money from China.
Taking Chinese money.
Fist. Yeah.
Of course. It's ridiculous. That's what I'm saying. The whole thing is ridiculous.
And I'll also point out that there was way more criticism of these golfers for interacting with Saudi Arabia than, Buck, there was for Joe Biden. Remember last year, he went to Saudi Arabia and begged for more oil because oil prices were so high last summer. Here's an audio clip of that discussion, I believe, from last year on Fox News.
Ultimately, as the LIV Tour continues to grow and as the PGA Tour shrinks, this is going to turn into a legitimate battle royale between these two big golf entities. I think the LIV Tour, given their backing from the Saudis, they have money to be able to go for a long time. Eventually, the PGA and the LIV Tour are going to have to sue for peace. It's going to be like the AFL and the NFL for those people out there who remember when the NFL had a charging league, challenging league, and ended up merging together.
That was a year ago. That is perfect. Can we get that clip so I can share it too on social? Because I couldn't find it myself. Good job by the staff. Trump also built on this and made the same prediction. He ended up being 100% right. That is now echoing around. But Buck, I think what is so interesting about this is part of the larger global behemoth that's going on. And I would even tie it into Bud Light. I would tie it into Target. There's a good article up. Bobby Barack at Outkick wrote it. You know, everybody changes. All these big companies, Buck, change their logo for Pride Month for their United States-based branding. The same companies that do business in other parts of the world, they have the same Twitter account, but it's like, I don't know, Anheuser-Busch Mideast or something, right? Just throwing it out there. They never changed the logo. So these multinational businesses, make no mistake that they are selling artificial bills of good to you when they say, oh, we're all about pride. The NBA is a great example. You know, the NBA is going to do a game, Buck, in the UAE where if you are found to be gay, do you know what they can do? They can behead you. So the NBA lectures all of us and they wag their fingers and they're like, how dare there be a transgender bathroom bill? And then they go take the money of the UAE where if you just are gay, you're allowed to be beheaded. This corporate BS, again, if your goal is just, hey, we're going to make as much money, we'll follow the laws everywhere we can do business, I get it. But the hypocrisy on this is staggering.
Well, China is also a much bigger concern for America's future, its safety, its preeminence than Saudi Arabia is. It's not even close. I mean, by a factor of 100. The Saudis provide the world with oil effectively. And there was a period there where a lot of and this is now bringing me back to the old days, a lot of the Wahhabism and Islamic radicalism, jihadism was funded by Saudi oil money. And that obviously ties directly into 9/11. And I understand why there's still a lot of anger, because there really was never any Saudi accountability for that. In fact, there's still to this day some classified stuff around Saudi knowledge of or any complicity in by any Saudi official what happened on 9/11. So I'm very aware of all of that. But you also have to deal with the world as it is today. And what have we seen with Russia? With Russia, we tried to take a moral stance. People will argue that Ukraine is a geopolitical win for us or something if we help it. But really, it's a moral stance that the Biden administration has taken, which is Russia is bad. Russia invaded. We have to help Ukraine, and we're going to attack them economically. What we found out is that when you have a whole lot of natural gas, a whole lot of oil, a whole lot of fertilizer, a number of inputs that the global economy needs, it's going to get it. You're going to sell it. People are going to buy it from you. And so we need to be realistic about what's possible and what's not when you're talking about boycotts. But the perfect example is always anything that is woke in corporate America that is doing business in China. They're always like, well, I can't say anything about China because that would really hurt my profits over there. But, here I'm really, really brave. The NBA is probably the most obvious and pathetic example of this, but there are many others as well. Disney and so many companies out there. So, maybe I'll be watching my first. Are they going to change the name, or is it going to stay as the PGA? Do we know?
It's a great question. I think I think it's still going to be the PGA Tour, but it's a great question. There doesn't seem to be a lot of definite knowledge. I mean, they went on CNBC, but it's always when they do these mergers, they end up it'll be like the PGA Tour presented by LIV Golf. Like they try to.
I was going to
say
the PGA Tour sponsored by Saudi Aramco or whatever. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes, everybody.